Are you looking to sharpen your skills, boost productivity, or take your career to the next level? The IISE Training Center offers world-class professional development built for busy engineers, managers, and problem solvers. Whether you're diving into analytics, earning a Lean Six Sigma certification, or exploring supply chain logistics, our expert-led courses deliver practical tools with real results. Learn online or in person with options tailored to every career stage. Plus, our training works. Past participants have applied their knowledge to save their companies over $250 million in real-world projects, and 90% of Lean Six Sigma candidates pass their exam on the first try. Visit iise.org/training to explore the full course catalog and start transforming your career today.
Here's the problem. Fast food might look simple from the outside, but behind every perfectly timed order, there's a massive, complex system at work. At Chick-fil-A, that system runs like clockwork, even as the pace of business keeps accelerating and customer expectations are high. In this episode of Problem Solved, we sit down with Sam Hartman, a multi-location Chick-fil-A owner and operator, and Matt Riley, VP of Enterprise Solutions, to explore how they balance efficiency with humanity and what leaders everywhere can learn from the way Chick-fil-A designs its systems, trains its teams, and stays true to its purpose. Welcome, both of you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
So to start with, I would love to just hear a little bit about each of your backgrounds. Sam, can we start with you? And can you just tell us a little bit about your journey to becoming a franchise owner and what drew you to Chick-fil-A?
Yeah, absolutely. I started with Chick-fil-A right after I graduated from college from Taylor University, small school here in Indiana. Had an opportunity to spend some time with my best friend who got an internship at the Department of Information Technology down in our support center in Atlanta. Came back saying Chick-fil-A is the greatest company in the wide world. Let's do it together. And I wasn't real sold about moving to Atlanta, but every other door that I was trying to go through as a recent college grad got slammed in my face, and Chick-fil-A became the obvious thing to pursue. Had about a 3-year apprenticeship working for another operator here in the Indianapolis area, and then have been an owner-operator of my own franchise for a little over 21 years now.
Oh, wow. And so now you've got 3 locations, is that correct?
Yeah, we have 2 freestanding locations in suburban Indianapolis, Noblesville, northeast corner of the city. And then we also have a location inside Gainbridge Fieldhouse where the Indiana Pacers, the Fever play, as well as concerts and things of that nature.
How did you go from 1 to 3 locations? Was that gradual?
Yes, very gradual. First location was in Columbus, Ohio. We were the second lowest volume store in the chain at the time, $380 in revenue my first day of sales. Slow day. Felt busy because it was just my wife and I were the only 2 people in the building.
Oh, wow.
That's not entirely true. Our newborn was in a large fry box at the time as well. So the 3 of us, it made for a busy day.
I can imagine. I have some major respect for your wife there too.
You should. She's pretty awesome.
Yeah. So Matt, you are VP of Enterprise Solutions. Could you tell us a little bit about your background and your role and how you and Sam collaborate?
Yeah, absolutely. So what got me here started when I was about 4 years old. My parents ran a camp and conference center, and so that's what I did for the first half of my life. Went to school for that, worked at some camps all over the country before going into just food service. So I was working for a company that focused mainly on colleges and universities, smaller ones, doing dining services. And so after a couple of accounts, I ended up at Taylor University where Sam went, as well as, so when a Chick-fil-A opens a licensee location, there is always a local Chick-fil-A operator that acts as a consultant. So they're there to be able to help you through anything that have issues with, get the kind of that restaurant open. In my case, it was at the student center. And then do monthly checks to make sure the the brand assessments to make sure you're doing everything in accordance with how Chick-fil-A wants you to do them. So I would see Sam once or twice a month, and the actual Chick-fil-A like business assessment would take about an hour, hour and a half. And then we would spend another 2, 3, I think one time 4 hours just talking about life and where we've been, where we were going and that kind of thing. And so there came a point in time where I decided that I wanted to look for other opportunities. So the first person I reached out to was Sam, saying, "Hey, do you know of any operators in the Indy area that would be looking for someone who could go straight into leadership?" And he said, "Well, give me your resume. Let me pass it around." About a week later, he said, "Actually, I haven't passed your resume around. I am going to create a position for you in my restaurant." And so that was 9 years ago. And I've been working with Sam ever since.
Awesome. That's great. Well, Chick-fil-A is legendary for operational consistency and a pleasant customer experience. So let's dig into what's happening a little bit behind the scenes. In a lot of fast food businesses, you often have efficiency or a personalized customer experience. Sometimes neither, but rarely both. So how do you intentionally design and implement processes to balance these two things equally?
It's a great question. I think a large part of it has to do with just the people that we bring into the business. We certainly have gobs of systems and implementations that we're trying to pursue. But at the end of the day, if you don't have people that are bought in that can do those things somewhat naturally, then the best of systems fail. And so a large part of the credit that we have for the success that we are able to get in the restaurant is derived from training, derived from kind of orientation, derived from the building of an HR team that is very picky about selection at the get-go. Okay. This is an engineering podcast, so I suspect that that's not the answer you're looking for. But I would be remiss if I didn't say that that was a big component of it.
I was going to say human factors are such an important part of the process. I mean, especially in a fast food environment, it's relying on production. So there's so many opportunities for errors from taking someone's order to delivering the order. So I was curious, how do you go about reducing those errors and improving human performance? You would say like
Sure.
Training and just kind of starting with the right people to begin with.
Yeah, I certainly think that's a big component.
Mm-hmm.
Our vice president of human resources likes to remind people when we get compliments from guests that come by and say, "Where did you find all these wonderful people?" He'll look around and go, "Well, Susie was at Taco Bell, and Billy was at Culver's, and Johnny was at McDonald's," and so forth and so on. And so the idea is not that we're really taking unfinished people and finishing them by any stretch of the imagination. We're just putting a little extra polish on what we're trying to have them do from a systems implementation standpoint.
Yeah. So just for example, the drive-thru, probably one of the most famous things about Chick-fil-A. On a high level, why is the drive-thru so good?
Go for it, Matt.
Well, there's a number of reasons why the drive-thru is so good. You know, like Sam was already saying, it starts with the people and the training, but then where our systems come into place, we've got, with our phones, we've got all kinds of data points and metrics that we can track from, whether it's speed in the drive-thru, check average, any of that stuff. And so one of the things that we do in addition to that human component is we are constantly analyzing those metrics and trying to figure out, okay, how many stops are we asking people to make? Years ago, we had a drive-through that had 6 different stops, and we thought that was great because we were really focused on some of that service part of that and interacting with the guests. But what we discovered is it was taking a lot lot of time for those guests to get through. While we implemented some of those to focus on the accuracy piece, but it was causing people to be like, man, this drive-thru is taking forever. And so being able to reevaluate and say, okay, our focus was here. Maybe we spent too much energy focused on that and we lost some of these other things. And you could tell that by, hey, it's taking on average a minute for each car to get out of the drive-thru when our goal is 19 seconds for a car to be leaving the drive-thru. And so being able to make some adjustments going, okay, we don't want a car to stop 6 times. Can it stop only twice? Once to give the order and once to receive the order. And so those are things that we look at on a regular basis and are constantly trying to refine some of those. And that's just outside the restaurant. There's a number of systems that we implement inside the restaurant to keep that flow when you're looking at how do we store stuff? How many steps does it take to be able to restock these cups? How do we add a position to be able to split this job, but thus giving us an additional 20 seconds of savings per transaction?
Interesting. So you're talking about really specific things like number of steps and things like that. That specific example, how did you get a certain number of steps from 19 to 15 or whatever your goal was?
Let's see. One of the first ones was a former director that worked for us, who is now an operator in northern Indiana. His name was David. He literally counted how many steps it took him to walk back to one of the storage areas for cups. I mean, we've done a lot of these, but that's just one. The first one I remember. And so David's like, hey, it took me 50 steps to go get a box of cups. And he said, if we move this box to this storage area up front, we go from 50 steps down to 20 steps. And so it's a lot of those things. And that restaurant has had multiple rebuilds or renovations to change some of those storage areas. So those are things we're constantly looking at. So when the drive-thru was expanded and we gained a lot of storage area up front in that drive-thru, one of the things that we did was look around the restaurant and go, what did we have to store somewhere else that now can be moved up front? Because we're greatly reducing the amount of time it takes to restock or the steps it takes, which means a team member doesn't have to leave the milkshake machine for 30 seconds to go back and restock something. They can stay there, and then that milkshake is getting to our guests that much faster because that person is there ready to serve.
That is so interesting. So how does that vary across the different locations, like the different 3 locations? It must be quite a bit to keep track of all those different metrics and analytics.
Yeah, I think the in-store leadership is what really makes the differential there. We have a team of 5 folks that serve on kind of a regional board that report to me. 2 of those are general manager, executive lead is our title, because we like to do things a little fancier. So they each have senior directors and managers beneath them that are able to really track and predict performance via KPIs all across the restaurant. There's a pretty substantial sales volume difference between our 2 freestanding locations in Noblesville, but there's still a significant drive towards how do we continue to keep getting faster, getting more efficient in each location. The differential between the 2 from a sales volume perspective means that the metrics get a little funky, but we're certainly doing a really great job in each individual restaurant being able to grow wherever they're at.
I think one thing.
Go ahead, Matt.
One thing that I was going to bring up, going back to like when you were talking about asking about the intentionality of the design process. So one of the things that I was thinking about with that, what our vision is to we play to win, and who doesn't love a good Venn diagram? And so we take these and we put them into three circles of. We play to win with our guests, with our business, and with our team. And we take it an extra kind of layer of those circles are also rubber bands. And so when you pull on one, it affects the other two. And so any decision that we're making, we put it through those lenses of how does this let us win with our guests, with our team, and in our business. And we know that there are certain times where we've had to pull harder in one direction than another, but we try to maintain this balance. So if we do something just to affect how fast a process is, what implications does that have on our business, and what implications does it have on our team, in addition to what we're trying to fix with that guest experience. And so I think for us, that's something that we like to focus on, and it's become our vision as an organization is how do we win in those three areas, because it would be real easy to say it's always guest first or it's always business first. But for us, it's about finding balance and be able to create these systems that do maintain a balance. It's not always equal, but we know how it impacts those other areas, and we can say we are okay with that, or hey, we need to go back and rethink this because it's going to impact this one area too much, and we don't want to take that risk at all, or just yet, or whatever it might be.
Yeah, it's all interconnected.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it sounds like, I mean, what I'm hearing, and I'm not an industrial systems engineer, but it sounds like what you're doing is you're implementing continuous improvement, which is, one of the biggest things that ISEs do. So it sounds like even if you're not an industrial systems engineer by training, you kind of start to think like one. Have you found that to be true? And do you think that your employees kind of start to think like that over time too?
I hope so.
Yeah.
Matt mentioned the one restaurant that has the higher sales volume, higher drive-through, since that's kind of what we've been talking about. Our sales volume has grown about 3.5x from our original opening year 9 years ago. And Matt mentioned the remodels and so forth as well. So that amount of sales growth combined with 9 years worth of time has led to an awful lot of changes and implementations, and let's move the ketchup here. No, actually, let's move it back over there. As sales have changed, as throughput has changed. I can't remember if you were there or not, Matt, but very distinctly recall the first hour that we hit 75 cars in our drive-thru, and it was this huge celebration. Now we routinely will do 290, 300, 330 cars in an hour. And so that level of growth just necessitates a high level of, as you were talking about, systems implementation and change.
Yeah. So as far as the facility itself, that's kind of continuously changing too. You talked about putting ketchup in different places and cups in different places, but what about like the actual structure? How do you decide what, because those are bigger changes. So how do you decide when it's time to make like a change in the actual structure of the restaurant?
Well, depending on which way you're looking at it, those are not decisions that we, as the local ownership, get an opportunity to make. The flip side to that is because the way our franchise agreement is laid out, I don't have to pay for it either. So pluses and minuses.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, we have, because of the sales growth, our corporate office has been helpful in getting us a couple different remodels and improvements in throughput. Matt is a genius looking at blueprints and kind of predicting what sorts of things the folks in Atlanta that don't work in the field might not be thinking about or might not be prepared to adjust. You can talk about some of those things, Matt.
Yeah, the most recent one was the drive-through expansion at our Saxony restaurant, and the nice thing is that recently with the folks at Inc. They're getting better at that back and forth feedback and inviting the operator and his team or her team sooner in that design process. And so I was able to take a look at the blueprints as we were still in the design phase of all that, going, okay, here's where things should be. And could we get extra shelving here? Could the ice machine be located here instead of this additional prep sink? To be able to make lemonades up in the cockpit. We don't want to do that. There was a lot of back and forth, and some of it was, do you really need this? And it's like, yes, we really need this. There's one or two things I didn't get in that process, and I can look back going, it would have been perfect if we would have had that. But that's just one of those things that we can live without. The one I'm thinking is an additional KPS screen. Again, just reducing the amount of effort it takes from any one person having to ask for something else. If we can be proactive, that means we're saving 2 or 3 seconds. And if that whole journey we're trying to reduce that, so that way we get a car out of the drive-thru every 19 seconds, 1 or 2 seconds can make a big difference.
So true. And what I'm hearing is, I mean, you both must really just know this process inside and out. In order to make those kind of suggestions, you really kind of have to be like on the ground and in the weeds, knowing this every single day and seeing it and experiencing it.
Yeah, you definitely couldn't do this. If my job was to just sit here all day in this room, I wouldn't be able to be super helpful in a lot of ways, just because it takes being in the restaurant and seeing those systems working or not working to be able to work through what's that process to be able to make those adjustments. The data that we get in all of the different channels is only good to a certain point. If you're in a sense, if boots aren't on the ground where you're able to see it in real time, you're not getting the full perspective.
Yeah. Kind of leads me into my next question. It's kind of about culture. Culture, a good culture has to start, well, any culture, bad culture too, starts at the top and goes down. So Sam, can you talk a little bit about the culture of Chick-fil-A and how do you incorporate that into your team?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a big part of our culture in our 3 restaurants is, as Matt said, a willingness to get involved, and get hands dirty. I like wearing a sport coat every day because I think it differentiates me just a little bit. I think guests appreciate knowing that the owner is there working and handing bags out through the drive-through door and so forth. I also have a large number of sport coats that have peanut oil stains on the sleeves because I was scooping fries or helping out in the kitchen doing things as well. And the degree to which your organization can grow is heavily dependent upon how much your upper leadership are involved, how close that they can get to customers, how close they can get to staff and team members. And I think that that's a big part of the culture that we've created. I mentioned also as well, the degree of training and implementation that we do is very, 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 very high. Serving chicken is not life or death. It's not heart surgery. It's not rocket science. But I think just from listening to Matt for the last few minutes, you can tell that it is complex. And the challenges that our team members face, again, not life or death, but seconds matter. And when a guest is frustrated because our drive-through is slow and moving it took them 6 minutes to get through instead of 5 minutes to get through, it has a definite impact on sales and revenue and customer experience and OSAT, all those other sorts of things. So recognizing that that level of execution has to be at such a high degree in order for our guests to be satisfied is a big part of the culture as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I read fairly recently that Chick-fil-A implemented a change from from saying you're welcome or no problem to my pleasure. So I'm just curious, can you talk about the reason behind that? Was it difficult to incorporate that change?
I can speak to that one a little bit, Matt. Our founder, Truett Cathy, developed a really good friendship with Horst Schulze, who was the CEO of Ritz-Carlton years ago. And Truett became really enamored with the Ritz-Carlton staff that referred to him and responded to him with my pleasure. And so he really wanted to have Chick-fil-A team members across the country respond in that way, and pushed it with a lot of effort, if I'm being honest, over the course of many years. It probably took, in his perspective, it took 6 or 7 years of him asking operators and team members to incorporate my pleasure into the vocabulary before it really stuck. Mm-hmm. And now it's certainly a big part of who we are. Again, I'm referencing our VP of HR again, but he has a line where he says, "My pleasure is not just a buzzword, it's a moral imperative." And if we are bringing on people to the staff that don't have that kind of my pleasure attitude ingrained within who they are as a person, then that my pleasure does not sound nearly as sincere as we want it to the guests.
Yeah, I think just as a customer myself, I think that does actually have a really nice, good impact. I'm just curious, can you speak to either Sam or Matt, can you speak to maybe one of the biggest challenges that you're facing right now, or if it's supply chain or staffing or rising costs or whatever it might be? Can you talk about it and how you adapt to maintain that positive customer experience?
Go for it, Matt.
Yeah, the one that we are actively working through is another Chick-fil-A restaurant opening very close to our two freestanding locations that we did not qualify to be able to apply to be able to run. And so we're looking at, really for us, competition for the first time. I mean, we all have competition from a quick serve restaurant standpoint, but in our area, we were feeding 10% of Noblesville on a daily basis. And so when you're looking at another store opening in Noblesville, for us, it's going to make an impact. And so we are actively working through that of top to bottom. What does that mean? That means we have to make sure from a guest perspective that they are getting the best experience, because they're going to be getting the same Chick-fil-A experience that everyone has known to love and enjoy right down the street. And so what's going to be different about ours, what's going to set ours apart from a very similar culture and personnel and all of those things. So how does that look different? How do we continue to evolve when it comes to our systems and what it takes to deliver that chicken to our guests? Are we doing that to the best of our ability? Do we have the ability to be faster? Is there something that we are inconsistent on from a product standpoint? I think it was actually Truett who said, if you strive for perfection, you can settle for excellence. And so for us, our goal is perfection. We know we're not going to be perfect, but if we fall short, well, we're still going to be doing a really good job of execution if our goal is to be perfect. And so finding all of those opportunities, we're going to mess up. And we're going to figure those things out, and then we'll make adjustments, and we'll continue to try to improve, and we'll get the feedback from our guests through all of the different ways and avenues that we have to be able to get that, whether it's them filling out a survey or having a lot of conversations directly with us inside the restaurant or through the window of their car. Our guests are not shy to let us know that we are doing really well, or we have created an environment that has some friction points. So they'll be the first to tell us, and it's up to us to listen and make those adjustments.
And I'm just curious, as individual franchise locations, how much freedom do you have to make, decisions? Like, how far can you, vary this way or vary that way?
It depends a lot on what area of the business you're talking about. Obviously, with recipe, the way we make the sandwich has to be the same, right? In terms of marketing, we have an awful lot of freedom in terms how we engage with our guests, how we grow our brand on social media, and online digital platforms, et cetera. A lot of freedom there. In terms of HR components, I can choose pay scales, I can choose benefits, I can choose retirement plans in whatever form and fashion that I want. The buildings themselves are actually owned by our corporate office, so I can't do much with the infrastructure. I can ask for things, as Matt has mentioned, but ultimately that's in the purview of the folks there in Atlanta.
Is there something about running a Chick-fil-A that might surprise our listeners?
I think whenever I talk with folks that are interested in becoming operators, the thing that always surprises them is how engaged in the business that we need to be. I talk with an awful lot of folks that say, "Oh, I see how many cars come through the drive-thru. This must just be a money printing machine. I'll buy one and go sit on the beach." And that is definitely not the way to be successful within our brand. That level of engagement is very high, or at least expected to be very high. I am in the restaurant. If I'm in the state, I'm in the restaurant every day.
That is interesting. So on that note, what other advice do you have for young professionals out there who want to work in any operational leadership role? Maybe not just Chick-fil-A specifically, but just in operational leadership in general.
Go for it, Matt.
I'd say be open to feedback both ways. Sam has created this incredibly rich culture of feedback, especially amongst the leaders, and it starts with him. We've had a lot of great conversations. We've had a lot of tough conversations with Sam directly of what it meant for him to lead us and what it means for us to lead for him and with him. And it's that constant feedback, and Sam not being afraid of us having those conversations and us not being afraid for Sam to pull us aside and say, "Hey, I'm seeing some things and I'd love for it to be different." And so it's that ability to welcome that feedback and also ask for that feedback, because we can be real quick to be defensive and not want to accept it. But one of the things I talk to a lot of our young leaders, and I'm even have been introducing this with my kids, is the idea that our intentions are not always what is perceived by others. And so if we're not open to that feedback, then we create this culture where I don't understand how my intentions are affecting those that I'm trying to lead or trying to work with. And so by at the very beginning establishing that, hey, if you want to talk to me about some of the things that you don't like about how I'm leading, I'm open to that. That's a conversation I have with anyone that I am leading. I know what my blind spots are. And so from the very beginning, I give them permission to call me out on those blind spots, because I know I'm not going to actively be able to always tell when I'm letting that person down. I'm not great at encouragement, and that's just who I am. But that is something that a previous leader who worked for me, his name's Josiah. He thrives in an encouraging setting. And so that was something where I had to tell Josiah, like, it's okay for you to tell me, Matt, I just need you to encourage me right now. Mm. And I'm able to then flip that switch to say, okay, Josiah, I'm going to lay it on you, because I now know that is what was missing in our interactions recently. And so it's that ability but if I didn't have that feedback from people, I'd be a terrible leader. And so it's being open to that feedback, to receive it and to give it to the others, because we're all trying to make each other that much better.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. Sam, what about you? What's your best piece of leadership advice?
I think I would kind of piggyback on what Matt said. If you're a college intern looking for a summer job, if you're a recent college grad looking to grow, not only be accepting of that feedback, but look for an organization that will offer it to you and put more value on that than the dollars that they're going to pay you to do the work. At some point in your career journey, maybe that flips. But as a young person, being in an environment where you can have a high degree of confidence that your boss, the person that you report to, is going to be able to give you frank feedback, to develop you, to encourage you, to mold you, to shape you, to give you those opportunities is way, 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 way more valuable than a few extra bucks on a paycheck every week. We have a phrase within our organization that we use a lot. It's not always kind to be nice. And thinking through how often, especially in today's kind of, we're very legalistic, and so as leaders, we're often maybe a little afraid to give that frank feedback to the people that are reporting to us. Finding that person, that culture that can give that to you is invaluable, truly, truly invaluable.
Right. Giving the honest feedback with that person's kind of best interest in mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The kind thing is to share, boy, you really screwed that up. I love you, but you screwed that up.
Right. And here's how to do it better next time. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. I do that with my kids. Yeah, that makes sense. So if there's one thing that you would want our listeners to take away about Chick-fil-A's approach to systems, processes, and people, what would that be?
I think don't be afraid to start from scratch. That is something that, we build these impressive systems, and some of them are dictated, but the ones where we have the freedom to be innovative and do some things differently, don't be afraid to say, hey, this isn't working anymore. Let's start from scratch. And we might get to something very similar, but it's that practice of starting all over and working from the ground up that you might discover, hey, there's one or two things that have completely changed how we're going to move forward. One that comes to mind is we had this idea of before we got a door for the drive-thru. It's what happens if we took the person who inside the restaurant at the window and put them outside the restaurant. And I remember going, I don't know if that's going to work, but it was, let's think about this
Someone
completely
else suggested
different.
It would be a good idea if I recall.
Someone
not
did.
naming names.
Someone was pushing for it. And so we said, you know what, as much as one or two of us might be against it, we're going to try it. Because if nothing else, then we can say, see, Sam, we told you it wasn't going to work. But in this case, we tried it, and it's like, this is a game changer. Who would have thought if we would have taken the person inside and put them outside, that we'd be able to do so much more. And now there is a door. So Chick-fil-A even looked at that, because a lot of restaurants started doing that, to be able to say, hey, this is a great idea. Let's remove the obstacle from getting people in and out of this restaurant in the drive-thru to be able to deliver food that much faster and have a different interaction. So if it's not for the ability of just saying, let's think about this from the ground up and rework everything, I don't think we would have came to the same conclusions. And so it's like, don't be afraid. It doesn't mean you have to completely blow everything up, but it's a good exercise because you're going to find things that you missed just because you can't see the tree through the forest, kind of thing. If I didn't mess that quote up. Right.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Sam, what about you? What's the one thing that you want our listeners to take away about Chick-fil-A in general?
I would hope that guests continue to give us really good feedback on how we're doing, wasn't fast enough. Sandwich was too small. Sandwich was cold. Sandwich was perfect. I hope we get that too. But I would also hope that our guests listening to this would get a better insight into how complex doing some of these things are. I think we often think of people working in our fast food industry as not as educated or not as prepared, but there's an awful lot of work that goes into getting that sandwich to you. At any given shift, there's probably 35, 45 people working at a time. In order to get that sandwich to you in your car, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 people probably touch that sandwich with gloves on, I should say, at some point along the way. Yeah. And the complexity is just really, 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 really high. And so give us the feedback. We definitely want it. Good and bad, but hopefully a better understanding of the complexities leads to a better understanding of how we can deliver that feedback as well.
Yeah. Well, I think our listeners are really going to enjoy this conversation. If it's one thing that industrial and systems engineers love, it's a challenge to solve. So, so I really appreciate that. My last question is, what is each of your favorite menu items?
I'll take that one first. I get this question a lot. My favorite menu item is whatever thing we're not making right at the time. We do a lot of internal audits, and we have some third-party folks that come through and do secret shops and that sort of thing. So we have very time-sensitive feedback as to what items we're making well and what items we're making not. So I'll take whatever thing that we're not doing well at the time and eat it every day for a month.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, Sam stole my answer. That's a lot of times what I do as well. But so if I can't reuse that answer, the spicy chicken sandwich is always my favorite. But right now, our pretzel cheddar club is a fan favorite because I also know that that's not going to be around forever. So I got to get my fill now.
Yeah. Nice. Well, it's like
get the limited time only product. Good marketing. Nice pitch.
Yeah.
Right.
Nice pitch.
It's coming up on noon, so it's about time for me to take my lunch. So, so maybe I'll have to grab that. Well, I want to thank you both for coming on. I really, really appreciate it. I know our listeners do too. So, thank you so much.
Yeah, our pleasure.
A huge thank you to Sam Hartman and Matt Riley for pulling back the curtain on Chick-fil-A's culture of systems thinking, leadership, and continuous improvement. Their insights remind us that behind every smooth operation are people who test, adapt, and care enough to keep getting better. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to follow Problem Solved, the IISE podcast, wherever you listen, and share it with a colleague who loves great systems and even better stories. And remember, every great solution is a story worth telling.